The plot hole that I thought was created, it seemed like they kind of re-sewed it like a couple minutes after that. So I'm curious if there was something you saw that I missed.
And it's probably the same one. It's about how that girl, like at the end of episode 3, she quit the Ducks and she didn't go to that extra practice. It seemed like she's like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to join the Don't Bothers. And then, now I forget how it opened. And then suddenly she's back on the Ducks. And it's like, wait, I thought you quit. But then it showed her going to both practices, but there was no, like, for skipping that one practice, no one said anything, no one did anything.
In the beginning of the 4th episode, maybe that practice was the second practice, and then maybe there was a time jump going to a Don't Bothers practice on another day, and then after that practice, she tried to go to a Ducks practice, and then she just lost track of what uniform she was wearing.
Well, that for sure, but I just mean that specific practice. I thought that at the end, she walked out, because he was like, no, we're practicing right now, because we lost. And they were all going to the ice, and she was like, no, I'm out. And then she went to, like, the Don't Bothers and was like, okay, I'll join your team.
And then she went to the practice where they were essentially getting bagged, which I don't know if that was just, like, additional punishment. I mean, I get the sense that the Ducks practices probably have a lot of skating and conditioning. That's why they're so much better. So I don't know if that was necessarily a punishment skate. I guess it doesn't matter too much to the plot whether that practice in the opening was the punishment practice after the game against the Don't Bothers, or if that was just another day.
Another day. I'm sure that was another day. But it was like that. It was the end of that game that the Ducks, or that the Don't Bothers scored one time on the Ducks, that he was like, go back out right now. That's what it sounded like he said. All the hockey movies where he makes them do suicide for losing or whatever.
And I was going to make the comment that they kind of had a little minor miracle Easter egg when Bombay was privately training Alex after their like parents' practice. When she was taking a bunch of slap shots, he kind of copied the Herb Brooks constantly being like, again.
Yeah, but I feel like that's just a common coaching technique.
So one of the main talking points that I had for this one that's covering episodes 3 and 4, I'm still not a big fan of the hockey from this show. In the game against the Ducks,
There wasn't even any hockey, it seemed like.
In the game against the Ducks, they obviously got smoked. I mean, it's almost a direct parallel with when District 5 played the Hawks the first time. I don't know if the score was identical. Actually, I don't think it was, because I don't think District 5 had any against the Hawks. But just like how in the first one, number 9 Banks had all sorts of goals, and seemingly number 9 Sophie or whatever, I think that's her name, she had pretty much all their goals. I had kind of an issue with the play that Bombay drew. Pretty much the entire thing of that play would be illegal, and any ref would probably blow it dead the second that the goalie went to cover it. Yeah, the ref can say, play it, but Logan LaRue would get assessed a minor penalty, or they would probably be given a penalty shot for him falling on the puck like that. And so even though he technically wasn't laying on the puck, just like, I mean, that would probably be a penalty shot if it wasn't blown dead initially. And so then when he goes to play it, he can drop it to his teammate behind the net. But then when they kind of slingshot Sam into the Ducks players, that would easily be at least an interference. They could probably assess a major penalty for attempt to injure.
They didn't really understand that play. It just seemed cinematic. But isn't the flying V technically illegal too?
The flying V is legal up until they enter the zone offsides, and then there are usually like 4 different interference calls that could be made. If they were more subtle about it, if they didn't blatantly like knock over the guys, they could kind of try to set a pick almost. Sometimes you can get away with subtly skating by a guy and blocking them from getting to the puck carrier, and sometimes the ref will let it go if you're subtle enough about it. The Red Wings kind of did that for years, and a lot of people hated it. But yeah, I mean, the Flying V for the most part is one of the more illegal things, but it looks a lot cooler on screen than that the breakaway play or whatever it is that he called.
Yeah. Well, also, like, a breakaway is a real thing, so I guess it makes sense that she didn't know that, but it's like, that's not that magical. Does she just not know what hockey plays are? Like, does she not know any hockey words?
I don't even think it was a her thing, though. I mean, I think he took the booklet and labeled it the breakaway play. I think that was what Bombay called that, was the breakaway. So that's even more strange that a guy that's supposedly this brilliant hockey mind calls a play like that the breakaway, which is its own thing. I mean, maybe that's what he was going for, is it's basically like the annexation of Puerto Rico from the Little Giants, where in that case they run the fumble Ruski to get a long distance touchdown. And in this case, they sort of run like a Fumbleruski Statue of Liberty type play to try to spring Evan or whomever for a breakaway. I mean, I guess that makes sense, but I feel like they should have a cooler name for it than just the breakaway.
I mean, I guess that was before he was really going to be a part of anything. So maybe he's just trying to teach her a hockey term.
The only thing that we really got answered in the next 2 episodes since the last time we recorded was why Bombay is currently so jaded about life. Some of the other things that we were hoping to come to fruition didn't really happen yet. We haven't gotten any sort of cameos. We haven't gotten any sort of resolution to Charlie Conway's relationship with Linda.
I don't think Charlie Conway is going to be in. I don't really care about Linda.
I was actually thinking, like, what possible plot points they could have or plot devices they could have for maybe, like, a season 2. And I was thinking, like, what if they have Charlie Conway's son, like, move into town, and it's like Joshua Jackson doesn't necessarily have to be in it because they could just be like, Charlie's out of the picture somehow. Charlie Conway's son moves in, and then it's like, which one is Bombay gonna creepily have favoritism toward? Because they're already kind of painting that Charlie Conway, Gordon Bombay dynamic with Evan. So if Charlie Conway's long lost kid and his ex or whatever move into District 5 and join the Don't Bothers, or maybe they join the Ducks or whatever, that would be interesting. That would create a sort of like in-house rivalry aesthetic. And it's kind of similar to what they did in Glee too, when they had people from the Warblers come in. And so then it was like, who's really going to be the star now?
That would be very disappointing if Charlie, like, became like a deadbeat dad. Like, if he did, like, I don't know. That whole cycle would be kind of sad. I feel like the audience, like, since the kids are younger, maybe the audience is a little younger. I don't know. We already talked about how the audience is probably, like, people in their 40s. But that seems like a little bit toxic for 12-year-olds to have that kind of thing. But like I said before we were recording, like, why does Bombay only form friendships with single moms and 12-year-old kids? Like, why doesn't he have any friends his own age? I don't think there needs to be a rivalry, but, like, I don't know. He needs other fulfillment in his life.
That was one thing I was going to discuss was it sounds like they're heading toward shipping Alex and Gordon. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I think I like his relationship with Casey Conway better.
Well, also, it's like, yeah, it just shows kind of a pattern. Like, it's like, why? I guess they kind of, the way they explained his whole history and stuff, that was kind of what I expected. It was kind of a cop-out, but it's fine. But that's dumb. I don't think, I agree that they seem to be pushing for that relationship, and I think it's stupid.
The other thing I noticed that was pretty stupid in my opinion was they gave Alex a white CCM helmet during the skills competition when her own son, who realistically she probably would have borrowed her son's equipment, he has a black Bauer helmet, and at certain times in the show he's had a black CCM helmet. I think I get why they were trying to give her a different color, because they wanted her to stand out. Not that the audience is too stupid to find her on screen without a white helmet. It kind of reminded me of the other day when a parent had some sort of parent practice or parent scrimmage or something that they were doing for their kids' team. And so they were coming in to buy all this gear, and then a couple of days later they were like, oh, I realized I could just borrow my kids' stuff. And so they ended up returning all of it. And so that made me think, like, yeah, couldn't Alex just for one skate borrow Evan's helmet? It also, I wasn't crazy about how she didn't have hockey gloves or anything. I also thought it was kind of dumb that when she was doing the instructions, or like getting the slap shot instructions, why wasn't she wearing hockey skates for that? I mean, they had some sort of like mat for her to stand on in boots, but it's like, why not practice in hockey skates? And also, I'm kind of surprised she was even wearing rental hockey skates, because in the first episode she had figure skates and was fairly competent on them. I know obviously figure skates are a lot different than hockey skates, but if Tammy and Tommy Duncan could play hockey and figure skates, I don't know why she couldn't do a skills competition in hockey skates.
Also, is that, I get that it was like a dumb thing that her toe was over the line, but how would your toe over the line make a difference in the speed of a shot? It's not, like, it makes sense if it's like, oh, if it goes in or not, but they were measuring the speed of her slap shot. So why does it matter where her foot was?
I think they were trying to think of a technicality way for her to lose. I think that was really all they could come up with. I don't know if in like the NHL, when they do the All-Star Skills competition, I don't know if where their feet end up on the attempt. I don't know if that has any bearing on their score. As far as I know, they just get 2 attempts. Whatever their fastest attempt ends up being is what their score is. So that was fairly realistic, that they got 3 attempts, and then it's like each one takes 3, and then whatever the fastest out of their 3 is overall ends up winning.
Like it was what, like Stephanie's husband and their coach, so obviously they're biased and all that. I just thought that was a dumb technicality.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's the point, is it's like clearly she had not a much harder, but clearly she had a faster shot, and whether you're willing to accept it or not, she technically did win. But what I didn't like about that final attempt was that it was on the ice until about the circles, and then all of a sudden it jumped into the upper corner. That was pretty terrible. It wouldn't just all of a sudden jump into the top corner after being on the ice, slow on the ice the whole time, and then all of a sudden when it slides to about the high slot, it all of a sudden cuts, and then it goes into the upper corner of the net. And also another thing is, when you're doing those slap shot competitions, generally the gun registers lower if the shot is higher. So when guys try to do that, they usually try to shoot low anyway, because it registers better. Maybe like a little bit off the ice, maybe like 6 inches or so off the ice, but a shot into the upper corner, that would take off some of the velocity, and so you would probably lose out on a couple miles per hour. So I guess going into the upper corner maybe looks cooler, not when the puck was on the ice and then all of a sudden jumps up into the corner. And I guess that also, like when Charlie had the penalty shot in the first movie, at the end, he had the whole like upper right side of the net. His shot was going lower left corner, and then all of a sudden it cuts and it goes upper right hand corner. From like at the angle he was, that was an impossible for the puck to do that.
But also, like, yeah, I kind of wish they had shown the other skills too, even though it wasn't really plot relevant. It was like, how come all the other parents on the Ducks, on the Don't Bothers, like half of them were good enough to win, but like we don't know what they won.
I feel like one of the moms of the podcast kid, I feel like they probably would have had a decent clapper. They did show Lauren Gibby's mom shoot one of the accuracy targets.
Yeah, she did that.
I don't know if that was like, it was the first shot to hit a target counts as a win. Normally it's like 60 seconds and you hit as many as you can in 60 seconds. Or it's like a timer to see how long it takes to hit all of them, and then it's like the shortest amount of time to hit all the targets ends up scoring. That's how it works in the NHL anyway. So that was kind of weird that she hit like one of them. And also, like when she was practicing, she sniped the upper corner, and then at that one she like barely hit the lower corner. I don't know why she wouldn't try to snipe the upper ones in the actual comp.
I thought it showed that she hit all of them, or that's what I thought it was implying. But there were other skills because it was tied. It was like 3-3, and Alex was the tiebreaker.
Yeah, so there was one sort of like relay race where they were like going through the cones. I think the whole team had to go skate through the cones and back, I'm guessing. So they did kind of show that, and I think Maya's mom was really good at that when they practiced, and she was wearing figure skates from what I noticed, and that was when Bombay was like, "Wow, you're really fast." But they didn't. Yeah, I mean, it was 5-5, and then all of a sudden it was the slap shot competition or hardest shot.
Yeah.
Whoever they got to be Alex's slap shot double actually had pretty good form, but it just bothered me that the puck was clearly sliding on ice, didn't get any elevation, and then it just jumped into the upper left corner.
I don't know. Also, I would like to point out that not usually, in my experience, all mom hockey events have a lot more wine than that. Even when I went to play at like the girls' hockey camp, they gave us wine.
A couple other things I wanted to mention as we kind of wrap here. One thing was my favorite may have changed when I saw Koob doing Les Mis. That gave him some cool points for me. I still really like Sam, don't get me wrong. It might be a tie though, because that gives, I mean, Sam has some ground to make up here, because I mean he does really cool stunts. And that's another thing I wanted to mention. I was actually a little bit disappointed that his mom didn't try to grind the kick, or not the kick plate. It didn't try to grind the dasher like he did. That would have been sweet if, like, when they were doing the mom practice, the mom mirrored the kid and trying to grind the dasher or like parkour the glass.
Yeah, that disappointed me about this episode. I get that it was about like the skills challenge mostly, but then some of the kids were like barely in it. They just like they didn't even have any lines or anything. So that was kind of disappointing that none of them did anything cool. I did like that despite the loss that girl got to join anyway. I thought that was a good like plot device.
Though predictable as usual, yeah, I think everybody kind of figured that ultimately she would end up on the Don't Bother somehow just because she's in Don't Bother's gear on the show thumbnail. So that was pretty apparent that was going to be a thing somehow.
I was happy that it happened this way and it wasn't really based on like, the mom's skills.
Yeah, I'm glad that the dad made the connection that her happiness is more important than potentially getting into Harvard because of extracurricular activities.
Yeah, because as I said in the last episode, it literally doesn't matter where you go to school.
We did kind of get confirmation that Stephanie is Alex's boss, like I thought.
Yeah.
Too. That was a little bit unclear, but now obviously we know that. And before, the reason why I thought that she was the boss is because she went into Stephanie's office is like, I'm going to do this, this, and this. Like, if you let me leave early, I'll work at home. And it sounded like she was needing to report to Stephanie.
The fact that the only reason that she's not a lawyer is because she had to drop out, I'm assuming because of having a kid. I didn't really get that before, but I understand now.
I'm guessing that it had something to do with that, and I watched the preview of the next episode, and so the dad's going to show up. I don't know if you watched that. Evan's dad is going to show up in the next episode. I'm guessing that they're going to try to mostly pit all of the, I guess, career shortcomings from Alex on actions that the dad made. That seems like that's where that's heading. The other thing that I wanted to ask was, do you think they're trying to ship Podcast Kid and Evan? Because it almost sounds like, I mean, he's talked a lot about like wanting to be best friends, and that's fine, but it almost sounds like he has like more than just best friend feelings for Evan. So I was curious what your thoughts were on that.
No, I don't think they are. I think that was interesting. I think that was just an interesting use of the language, that they're using the same dating type of language, but I think he just wants to be friends. But also, I was kind of like I understand why they invited Coop to the sleepover, but I kind of wish they invited everybody, because it's like, or not maybe not the girls, but like, what's his name, Sam? Like, then he's just, left out. There's not that many kids that like they can't include everybody.
And
And
Logan
also,
is
I was a
Logan
little
is the
bit
neighbor too. So like Logan could easily make it. He lives a couple houses away.
exactly. And that's the thing. He just moved in but I was a little surprised that they had never had a sleepover before because I thought they were friends and they're next door neighbors.
He said on his podcast that they're often the non-Jewish guests at Passover. So, I mean, I don't know if that was just
but
neighborly.
Dinner messes up the same as like
Yeah.
sleepover. But I kind of assumed they were friends.
I did too. And the reason why I brought up the shipping Evan and the podcast kid thing was because it's hinting that he has a crush on the Winnie girl too. So that would be kind of inconsistent, or like, I'm wondering if that's where they're heading. Like, he realizes she's like in her 20s or whatever she is. And so maybe they're pushing the like being 12 and being conflicted about your feelings kind of thing. Maybe he's confused if he wants to just have a close friend or if he thinks like he feels more than just being friends with Evan. I was kind of curious how that would end up. Last time we talked about kind of which of the kids mirror the kids from the original trilogy. I noticed, especially in the third one, I noticed that Maya and Logan are kind of sitting together a lot. Like, in any time they're in a team setting, those two are almost always next to each other or near each other. So I know we said last time that I feel like, yeah, I think that could be where this is going, because we said that Logan can barely skate, so that kind of mirrors Fulton. But yeah, the attractive guy, attractive girl, like it couple on the team, I could see Logan LaRue being Guy Germain. And Guy Germain and Fulton are brothers in real life, so it makes sense if he mirrors both of them at the same time.
I don't know. I hope that they're not trying to like shoehorn all of these things from the originals.
Yeah, my main hope for this show was that it was going to correct a lot of the hockey sequences and correct a lot of the continuity errors between shots just as the story unfolds. And that's like the one thing that has stayed terrible is the continuity errors and the hockey. There aren't really as many funny one-liners in this either as there were before.
I was going to ask, because I forgot, what's the timeline of the movies? I mean, between the originals and this one.
I mean, I think that it's like 1992 to 1996 in real time for the movies, and then I think this is taking place in modern day, so probably like 2020, maybe 2021.
Well, how old is Bombay? He's like 60 or 70. He's like...
I think in D2, I think Bombay was 29, I believe. I'm guessing he's probably in his late 40s or like mid 50s maybe. I wanted to mention though, like the thing with the NCAA sanctions, it's not necessarily always that exaggerated. Like buying hockey tape wouldn't necessarily get somebody in trouble like that, but I could, at the same time, that goes back to it being kind of a dog eat dog type business, and that is something where other schools or like people that are trying to get a good program in trouble or get them sanctioned. There's a real life example where people were trying to get Tom Izzo in trouble. They were bringing up dirt from like Miles Bridges had some sort of lunch that cost like $78, and they were trying to get Tom Izzo sanctioned and get him the death penalty because it wasn't confirmed if Miles Bridges' mom paid for like a $78 lunch at one point while he was being recruited. Something as stupid as that or as simple as that, where Bombay was just trying to do the right thing or try to get a kid hockey tape. I mean, if the kids got full hockey gear, I feel like they probably could afford hockey tape. But at the same time, I mean, something like that, where if you're just like buying a kid like a pizza or whatever, that legitimately isn't allowed by the NCAA. They do make it very hard for kids to get extra benefits other than the scholarship that they're getting to play sports. So that is something that is actually realistic that I enjoyed, where I could see somebody trying to get Bombay in trouble at all costs, especially if he's got this dominant program. That is something that realistically would happen.
Yeah, that makes sense. That is kind of a common thing with a lot of like educators where you just want to help and then you can't because it has like it shows like it makes people suspicious. of ulterior motives.